This is Ultimate Radio Experience, and this is the Christmas special of Route 66, the ultimate in country, folk, blues, roots and acoustic music, and we have a guest with us on this very special program. It's safe to say, folks, this is one of my heroes who is with us live on Skype now. Here he is. He is the man who introduced frailing to the masses, I believe. It never went away, but he woke it up again. The Crisfield craftsman himself, try saying that after a couple of beers, Mr. Patrick Costello. Patrick, a very good evening to you, sir.
How you doing? Really great to talk to you.
It's a pleasure talking to you as well, believe me. Now, a lot of my listeners are going to know who you are, but for those of you out there who are wondering, just who is Patrick Costello? Would you like to tell us who you are and how you got started and what is it you do?
I'm a folk musician. I live in the town of Crisfield, Maryland. We're on the eastern shore of the Chesapeake Bay, 2,000 people, one red light, 5 police officers, middle of nowhere. And my father and I started teaching music on the internet back in 1997. And it was such a new concept that there was a lot of very heated discussions about whether or not I would be allowed to teach my craft online. There were people actually saying, "We're going to stop this." And
you're joking me?
No.
My
no,
goodness.
we were bullied. We were threatened.
I've seen some of those posts. We'll touch on that very briefly later. But yeah, how could people want to stop such a simple and delightful craft as this of making music? I mean, I've been a musician almost half my life, and I can't imagine doing anything else, to be honest. But you and your father, known as Dear Old Dad to the community of Frailers, you've been doing this for almost 20 years.
Yeah, and before that, we were teaching in Philadelphia just for the fun of it. And
that's incredible.
I'm almost...
I mean, you don't hear that from a lot of people. You do it just for the fun of it.
Well, that was how I learned. I was a teenager, my hearing was gone, and I had just been diagnosed with epilepsy. And I couldn't spend time in high school because after the diagnosis came in, I had to spend a week in the hospital. They announced over the PA that there was a chance I could have a seizure. An English teacher asked me to stand up and share with the class how it felt to be handicapped. So school wasn't a place I could be. And I grabbed my guitar, I grabbed my banjo, I strapped them across my back, and I went into the city of Philadelphia. All hours of the day, all hours of the night, on my own. And what I thought was, and I was right, it happened. If I put myself out there on street corners, on subway platforms, trying to play, somebody that knew the craft would stop and help me. And sure enough,
So let's get this right. Sorry, you became deaf as a teenager, and yet you became a musician. And I know some of this. You actually started out by putting the head of your guitar between your teeth. Is that correct?
Yeah, the upper bout. My father got me I got my first guitar out of the trash because my dad was like, "You're never going to learn to play the guitar. It's too hard. You're never going to follow through. It's a waste of money." So I pulled my first guitar out of the trash. It was an old nylon string somebody had stepped on. Whole lower bout was smashed, and I put it back together with duct tape. And I would sit and rest my front teeth on the upper bout of the guitar so I could hear. I have conductive hearing loss. My nerves work, but the mechanics that transmit sound from the eardrum to the nerve are gone. And by putting my teeth on top of my guitar, I could hear the sound inside my head. It wasn't perfect. I didn't, up until I had the surgery for the first bone-anchored hearing aid in 2009, I had never heard bass. I listened to records, I went to shows, and I was like, what's the bass player doing there? I don't hear anything. I mean, it must be a really easy instrument. Just stand there and move your hands. My dad would be looking at me like, you're really hopeless.
No comment on the bass being easy. I started on the bass. But guitars. Now, your Twitter handle, we'll get on to that again at the end of the show. I keep saying we'll get on to this, and we will, time permitting. To be honest, folks, I could talk to this guy all day. Mine of information, and I'm just a musical sponge, believe me. But you chose for not your first guitar, because your first guitar came out of the trash, but you chose a very, shall we say, different guitar for your guitar best friend. You want to tell us that story?
Well, the first musician to ever show me anything was a guitar player who had bought his National in 1928 when it was new. So I'm desperate to play the guitar. I pull the guitar out of the trash, and I was failing everything in school. So Dad comes out back, and he sees me with this filthy, smelly, duct-taped up guitar. And I said, I'm playing the blues, Dad. And he said, you're not playing the blues. That's, and I won't say what he said. And I was crushed. Yeah, he meant it as a joke and to let me know, you're screwing everything up, and here you are with this guitar. But the next morning, he wakes me up, and he says, get up. Let's go for a ride. And we drive from Philadelphia up to Staten Island, New York, to a store called Mandolin Brothers. And it was one of the greatest guitar shops of its time. It's closed in recent years. And Pop pulls out his credit card, puts it on the counter, and says to me, pick your guitar. You can have any guitar you want. I can't buy you a car. I can do this for you. And the first thing I laid eyes on was this big Resophonic guitar that was kind of like Tiny's old National, but bigger. The sun was shining on it, and it was like with Blues Brothers when the light comes through the church. Now with the band, and I was love at first sight. And
now,
Stan
for those
J.
people that don't know what a Resophonic is, you could probably describe it better than me. How does that differ from a normal guitar, shall we say? If you can,
a normal guitar produces sound by transferring the vibrations of the guitar string to the guitar top. And the guitar top resonates the sound. Resophonic guitars bypass all that. The body of the guitar is actually more or less like a speaker cabinet, and the strings are going over a spun cone. And you can have spider bridges where the cone is inverted, or biscuit bridges where the cone is like a volcano and the biscuit bridge sits on top. And that's what my guitar is, a biscuit bridge. And my dobro, on top of being Resophonic, is built out of brass. It weighs as much as a 12-year-old boy. I was playing with Dad one day, and the strap broke. The guitar fell and crushed my big toe.
Ouch!
I'm on the floor, trying not to scream. Is my guitar okay?
Try explaining that to the health insurance. I dropped my guitar on my foot.
But,
oh dear. But those dobros make beautiful sounds.
And the thing was, I didn't realize this at the time. If I had just been playing a normal guitar, none of the musicians that helped me would have stopped. The thing that always made them stop and help me was the sight of this kid playing a dobro bigger than he was, biting on it like he's gnawing on a bone. The sunlight hitting the chrome, and it looked so surreal. They had to stop and see what was going on. And I would take them making fun of me. And okay, Sure, I'm stupid. I'm silly. Show me what you can do, and then show me
Make
how to
some
do
good
it.
music. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
and
you started out on the old dobro, the national metal body dobro. Lovely instrument. And where did the banjo come in? Have to ask, because that's the instrument we associate you with these days, I would say. Yeah.
well, my dad and I took bluegrass banjo lessons when I was 7, and it was miserable. It was it was one of the
That's why I
most
packed in.
it was one of the most uncomfortable experiences of my life, and I once spent a day hanging by my wrist from an elevator shaft at the 7th floor. So I've been uncomfortable, and bluegrass banjo is on top of the list. But what Dad wanted to learn was frailing, the old time down picking. So we gave up on bluegrass, and a few years later, I found him a frailing banjo teacher by accident. And Dad started playing frailing and kind of getting into it. He was hanging out with this old beatnik that lived with Dave Van Ronk and Bob Dylan in New York City during the folk boom. And old Paul took me to a concert to see Peggy Seeger and Ewan McCall play in Philadelphia. And after the show, he takes me into the audience, and there's this little old lady sitting in a church pew. And Paul says, "Libba, this young man's going to play the banjo someday." And she lights up, grabs Paul's banjo. Paul was so strange, he actually carried his banjo into a concert, held it in his lap while the band was playing. So he had his banjo with him, and Libba Cotton gave me a banjo lesson. And when Peggy Seeger saw me sitting with Libba, she came running, and she gave me a banjo lesson right there in the church pews, while Ewan McCall scowled down on me.
And he wasn't known for his temper, was Ewan?
Well, I made him angry because I didn't understand why he was sitting with the chair turned around the other way, leaning with his elbow on the back of the chair, cupping his ear, and looked like he was half asleep. And I said, "Don't you ever sit up straight when you're performing? We paid for these tickets." And he stormed off. He didn't take
he did a lot of that. Great songwriter, but just a miserable guy.
Yeah, that was kind of what I took away from it.
Yeah,
so I got
the Manchester Scotsman. Sorry, carry on.
I got home from that, and keep in mind, I'm failing everything at school, and when I'm not in trouble for my grades, I'm fighting, because I was the kid. If you were having a bad day, I was the kid you went and beat up. And Dad sent me to karate lessons, hoping that I would be able to protect myself. And all that did was, when people punched me, I sent them to the hospital. So Pop and I were not getting along very well. And he got excited that I'd been shown a couple of banjo licks, so he offers to give me a banjo lesson. And about 10 minutes later, he took the book he was using in the tab files, tore them up, threw them in the air, and stormed off, and came back and said, "If you can teach yourself how to play, I'll give you my brand new banjo. I can make that bet because you're never going to do it." 3 months later, I walked up to him, played old Joe Clark, grabbed a new banjo, and went my way. And not long after that, I figured that was going to be the end of it. When we went to our first festival, I started meeting old players from the 20s and 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and music, with my hearing, with the epilepsy, communicating with other people was very, very difficult. And I realized music was a way to communicate without words. That's the brilliance of it. I mean, you have the songwriting aspect of music, but the heart of music is this very simple language. And you have the chromatic scale, and you're not transmitting. People say you can't order a cup of coffee with music, but you can, because I'll be playing somewhere thinking I could really use a cup of coffee, and somebody will buy me a Starbucks.
Incidentally, have you ever tried ordering just a plain black coffee in Starbucks? But yeah, that's for another time, I think.
Well, the funny thing is whenever I have a Starbucks, I always think the horse is sick. I mean, it just doesn't taste like good coffee. I can make better coffee than I can get from a Starbucks. But people, $10 coffee. There isn't a cup of coffee in the world that's worth this much. But I don't get the cell phone thing either.
No. Well, it's but rewinding a little bit. It's like Johnny Cash said. I mean, there's a song of his called Singer of Songs. Hardly anybody plays it. I don't know why. We'll probably play it later, just because nobody else is. But he says in that song, I can literally take you anywhere. I can take you for a walk along a country stream. I can take you to a city. I can take you to where a man was crucified. And he could. Just with simple guitar accompaniment and a song.
I met his mom.
Genius. Yeah. Really? Wow. Yeah, see.
A really long and weird story that involves Dad firing me from a job. And I went to Nashville. I wanted to play on the stage at Grand Ole Opry. So I waited till a bus tour was going in. I went in with them, and when they went off, I climbed up on stage and started playing my banjo. And security carried me off. They complimented me, and on the same trip, I was trying to find the recording of You Dirty Old Egg-Sucking Dog. I remember back in the 80s, if you didn't have a friend in a record shop, you couldn't find music like you can today. And I went to the Johnny Cash Museum, and there was a little old lady in a house coat and slippers selling T-shirts at the end of the museum. And people were like, that's Johnny Cash's mom. Oh, okay. Do you have anything that's got him singing You Dirty Old Egg-Sucking Dog? She sold me a tape and a VHS tape and didn't have the song on either one. I got home, I'm like, showbiz, folks.
Absolutely. Well,
Dad's
speaking
like,
of
where have you
selling
been?
I've been everywhere, man.
I've been everywhere.
But, yeah. But now, speaking of selling to business, and actually before we do, let's just remind you, you are listening to Ultimate Radio Experience, and this is Route 66, with myself, Jack Scrimshaw, and my special guest, Patrick Costello. This is rapidly degenerating from an interview to just a good old chat, two good old boys, but that's how we like it.
That's how folk music works.
Exactly. Yeah, spoken like a musician. But now, speaking of selling, you do these. You've done podcasts, videos, books. How did the idea for writing the How and the Tao of Old Time Banjo come around?
Somebody that I knew was starting a after-school banjo club at a high school in Frederick, Maryland. And he said, is there a banjo book out there that will work for kids? And I couldn't think of any banjo book that actually worked. People say this one, that one. When you actually try to apply what's in them, it doesn't work. So I said, give me a couple days. I'll throw a couple pages together you can print out for the kids and give to them. And after a weekend, I had almost 300 pages. And I sent it off to the school and figured that'd be the end of it. My father got his hands on it, and he edited the copy, pared down some of the pages, took some of the stories out, and cut a few things out of some of the stories too, because it wasn't family friendly. But an Irishman once molested my banjo, so. It was my first gig, and this guy said, do you think I could play my banjo with? And I said, I'd like to see you try. That's the wrong thing to say. Showbiz, folks.
That's right. It strikes again. That good old word, showbiz.
But
But
we
yeah. So
we sent the book around, and the different music publishers laughed at us. It'll never sell. It's a stupid book. Who mixes storytelling and conversational language in an instructional book? So we decided to start our own publishing company and see what we could do. And a little bit of research online, okay, this is how you get an ISBN number. This is how you set up. We created Pickware Publishing, and the How and the Tao of Old Time Banjo started selling okay. But after a year, I was getting upset because the book was written to help school kids. It wasn't written for profit. So I decided to make the book freely available. And my father and I fought like hell wouldn't have it. He thought I was crazy.
Yeah.
You can't give this away. This is a product. You don't give products away and expect people to buy it. Well, it turned out we were the first music book to go with Creative Commons. And because of that, we got talked about on computer website, computer science websites, Creative Commons, where they're talking copyright. It was viral. And people that would have never picked up a banjo book downloaded the How and the Tao of Old Time Banjo just out of curiosity. And people that never would have picked up the banjo started calling us and asking us where they could get a cheap banjo. And
so the revolution was born. Yeah.
Well, what we did, and we didn't really, this is Taoism in action. The whole idea what Lao Tzu was trying to tell people is don't try, let things happen. Just like I did in Philadelphia when I was, rather than go out searching for a teacher, put myself out there, let the teacher find me. Well, rather than try to find a marketplace to sell my book, I let the book create its own marketplace.
Well, it certainly is happening. I mean, this craft has been around for years and years, kind of overshadowed by the bluegrass. I mean, as we commented on earlier, bluegrass can be very challenging. I mean, I had that many bluegrass DVDs. They were all, for want of a better word, vile. I'd given up on the banjo. Well, memorizing fiddle tunes. I'm not a fiddle player. I'm a singer. I'm a folk singer. Discovered your website, rescued the banjo, and then had the whole, I thought you were throwing it out, from the girlfriend at the time. And I'm happy to say, I'm now introducing people myself. I mean, word of mouth is a beautiful thing. And what I loved was I tried introducing it to a friend of mine recently, and he said, "Oh, the guy that plays the slide on his banjo. I know all about him." I love that.
Well, I think what happened with us, and the reason bluegrass is losing its marketplace. If you look at bluegrass today versus 10 years ago, it is fading. And the reason it is, and the reason a lot of commercial folk music doesn't stay in the public's memory, is it's stage bound. Once an artist hits the stage, the music changes. Folk music is not meant for the stage. Folk music is people in the audience taking over, sitting knee to knee, sharing this language and empowering each other and sharing with each other, sharing of themselves, where the music business takes the language of folk music, gives. And it's a well that never runs dry.
And so far it's flowing beautifully. I mean, as you say, I think they are trying to commercialize bluegrass. I mean, don't get me wrong, I am not slagging bluegrass music for a second. I love it.
But it's it's even the old stuff is purely for performance. When you start with Bill Monroe, and he was trying to create a sound to get his band noticed, to get out there, and there's a totally different thing that happens when the person making music doesn't care if you buy something or not.
There's a Ralph McTell song called The Grand Affair about a folk singer who does make it, and when he does, he realizes that actually where he started was better.
Well, that's why I won't perform.
Yeah.
I refuse to perform. My father and I performed as the God Knows We Tried string band around America, and it was brutal. We were exhausted. We were fighting. We were tired. We would spend $1,000 to make 50.
Wow.
You know, and
so you're hearing it from the other side, folks.
And
yeah.
The thing is, these professionals, these experts, who labeled them the greatest banjo player, the greatest this, the greatest that, they hire somebody that writes the ad copy. We had a publicist contact us for $500,000. We can make Patrick famous. Dad said Patrick's already famous. You know.
Go to the YouTube channel if you don't believe us. You know, see for yourself.
And the thing I loved about my first encounters with folk music, when I met like Libba Cotton, she didn't care that I didn't know who she was. I didn't know this was the lady that wrote Freight Train. I just thought she was a nice lady and played the banjo upside down and backwards. I didn't know that Peggy Seeger was Pete Seeger's sister. I didn't know. Wow, it's a nice lady. She showed me how to play the C and D seventh chords without moving my hand, and it just used the full chord forms. For no other reason than she had a few moments to spare, and she loved the banjo enough to share. And we've given our cultural heritage to people that don't have our best interest at heart. Some do, but when you look at a professional and say, I could never do that, what I tell kids is, no, you could be better.
And this is why folk music will never die. I mean, you wouldn't get this at a pop concert. I mean, I don't have to tell the listeners of this program that, because that's what this is all about. I like to say we play the real music. I mean, obviously some of it comes from the commercial side, but we play music that wouldn't necessarily make the radio a lot of the time.
And that's from a DJ's perspective. You're just playing the music that's out there. You're not part of the marketing. You're helping people
won't even
discover
scratch the surface of what's out there.
Right, and if it wasn't for my local public radio station, I never would have discovered Mississippi John Hurt. And I would sit Sunday nights with my ear pressed up against a boombox and my finger hovering over the record button, hoping to hear something good. And most nights I didn't. I'd go for 4 hours of just, the
same
singer-songwriter stuff that, la, 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 my cat, la, 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 my wife, la, la, la. And then out of nowhere, coffee time. And what is this? I hit record, and it's Mississippi John Hurt doing Coffee Blues. And I went crazy. I'd never heard anything so joyful in my life. And when you hear what happened to him, how he went and made these brilliant records and then was just cast off, then rediscovered and just treated like a property.
You're talking about radio there. What do you listen to as a rule?
I have my favorite. I love Fats Waller. I love, the early jazz stuff, Django Reinhardt. But most of the stuff that I listen to for my own enjoyment gets sent to me by folks that say I helped them in some way learned the banjo. You know, I think one of my favorite albums is by a band called Harp and a Monkey from your neck of the woods. And I got this CD in the mail, and they said, well, one of your workshops, you said, try writing a song in 3/4 time. Well, that's the song I wrote in 3/4 times on this disc. And I listened to it, and they're light years better than I am. I was just like, I instant fan. And I got a email from another fellow that said he plays banjo in a metal band. And I got this. I get these tracks from Norris Moonshiner from Sweden. I love them. I wound up doing some vocal tracks for their demo album. You know, saying stuff like "No flesh shall be spared."
The dark side of Patrick.
There we go. And I feel like a kid in a candy store when people come up to me and say, this is what I did. Because I'm not just hearing, you know, the Operatives from the UK, another rock band that on one of their recent albums went right into frailing banjo with a bottleneck. It just took that turn and went with it, and I love it. And I'm so... My interest in music, I am the most camera shy person on the face of the earth. I want to throw up every time I get behind a camera. Or I should say in front of the camera. And when I hear from people that are making music and they're happy, then that's worth the work. The pay is lousy, but the work. I couldn't ask for anything better.
It's a payment in a different way. I would say it's not financial, but
well, I'm a banjo player. I was told when I was a kid that all of your heroes died broke, drunk, and crazy, and if you keep doing this, it's going to happen to you. There are no happy endings in country music.
Well, what a way to go.
I thought to myself, well, I won't be surprised when it happens. Okay, this is what I want to do.
Me too. You know,
I couldn't get it. I couldn't get an education. I couldn't get help in school. Yeah, I was reading Charles Dickens and Robert Frost in first grade, and I'd go to school and they'd tell me I was retarded. My parents had to pull me out of Catholic school because they were going to put me in programs because the nuns didn't like me. I sang silly songs. I told silly jokes. Didn't matter if my grades were okay. There's something wrong with this one.
Started with nothing and wound up with it all, I suppose. Well, from your personal definition and probably from mine as well. Some would say otherwise, but get out a bit more. That's my advice to those people. You know, enjoy life. People
talk to me, and it's really funny. There's two kinds of music students. There's music students that see the craft and want to take part of the craft. And I can help that person. And there's folks that walk up to me and literally say, I'm smarter than you. I should be able to do this in half the time. And I just smile.
You never stop learning in music.
But there's a type of person that comes to the craft and they just want it now, and they're used to getting what they want. So when they can't do the frailing strum perfectly the first half hour, they'll write me really colorful emails.
Yeah, and I've seen one or two of them. Yeah,
I just smile. You know, it's okay, and I get accused that I want everybody to play just like me, and you know, okay, go ahead.
Well, you know,
like my grandfather used to say, "Knock yourself out."
I couldn't play like Doc Watson. You know, cut me up a bit, but I'm still going. Sorry, carry on.
But Doc was my turning point when I realized that he was doing everything in the key of C. He was capoing. And he was a rock and roll guitar player. He only went to the folk end of things because they were recording his father-in-law. And he brought a pop guitar player's perspective to the old country tunes, and that's why his flat picking seemed like it came from another world. It more or less did. It came from rockabilly.
Another great style of music. Yeah. But
and
could you tell, Patrick, sorry to interrupt, please could you tell the cheater story? the capo story?
Well, I was at a festival, and there was a fellow that used to show up at the festivals in Pennsylvania dressed in a white suit with music notes on the lapels and a big, not a 10-gallon hat, a 50-gallon hat. I mean, the hat was bigger than me. And we called him Amish Elvis because he had the beard and no mustache. And I had a capo for my banjo. You know, I was just experimenting with using a capo on the banjo, and I must have forgotten it and left it on a bench. And I'm heading to the stage to see if I can get some time to play on stage, and he comes up behind me. Is this your cheater, son? And he just tears into me about how using the capo is cheating. You're not playing the chords all the way up and down the neck, and if you're a real musician, you wouldn't use such a thing. And I felt tiny. I just wanted to crawl under a rock and die. I'm almost in tears. This all tiny. Same guy told me, there's no happy endings in country music. He says, come with me. And we go to the stage, and Amish Elvis is getting ready to play. And I'm like, I don't want to watch that guy play. To hell with that guy. Tiny, you just stay here and you watch. Amish Elvis gets up on the stage with his guitar, reaches in his pocket, capo's at the second fret, starts playing. I'm saying, you, that dirty rotten son. And
dear.
There's two things happening in that story. There is a pecking order when you're learning the craft. Like when the first time I really got some education on modern blues guitar, I was given my blues name. And you don't get to choose your blues name. Any guy that goes on stage and just gives himself a blues name, that isn't how it works. You're given a blues name. Most of the time, you hate it. Booker Washington White hated being called Bucka White. My blues name is Pillsbury. I didn't want to be called Blues Pillsbury, but the guy was like, you want to learn how to play these bass runs? Like, yeah, call me Pillsbury. And I wear it proudly. But the little bit of fun that goes on that way, even that is to get you to realize that you can't take things too seriously. You're going to make mistakes on stage. You're going to make mistakes at jam sessions. And those, not only ad lib, the mistakes keep you from believing your own press. The mistakes make you realize that, people might call me this brilliant musician, yada, 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 but I've known players that make me look like a beginner. And the mistakes are a gentle reminder. Just don't take it seriously. It's only a banjo. It's only a guitar. And that's what I love. I love about the craft. Whatever I am in life, I just coming off the tail end of being horribly, horribly sick, and the music kept me sane because there's always something to discover, and there's always little reminders that, okay, you blew the song this time, play it again and see where you're going to blow it next time.
That's a great way of looking at it.
And people, you could, well, if you performed, you could make more money. If you did this, you did that, you could make more money. I'm working with my dad. I couldn't be richer. My father is my best friend.
How many people can say that? and mean it. You know, that's a very special thing indeed. Patrick, it's been an education. It's been a lot of fun. I could swap stories with you all night, but unfortunately, time is against us, the cruel mistress that she is.
Oh, we can do it again sometime.
We certainly, we would love to do that. I would love to do that, and I'm sure the listeners will. Before you go, where can we find you on the web? If there is somebody out there, yeah.
Frailingbanjo.com. Frailingbanjo.com. That's the easiest place to find us. You can contact us there. If you are just starting out and you want a one-on-one lesson over Skype, just ask. I don't charge for that.
Fantastic. Now, you did say you don't perform, and I'm going to take a gamble here, because if you don't ask, you don't get. A, do you have a banjo handy? And B, if you do, could you play us a song before we go? There he is. He's got one.
That's Cripple Creek. That's the first song we teach folks.
You can do that too. Just go to dailyfrail.com.
Yeah.
Start learning.
No more. Going down south, child, don't you want to go? Woman, I'm troubled. I'll be all worried mad. Woman, I just can't be satisfied. Just can't keep from crying.
Muddy Waters. Yeah. And you see, you know there's an old boy out there. I say you can't play blues on a banjo, boy. What's he just done? He's played blues.
You can play blues, you can play bluegrass.
You can play whatever you like.
Exactly. It's all down picking. Strike, strum, and thumb the fifth. And you can make
it in your sleep.
And it'll widen your world. You know, my dearest friend lives almost 3,000 miles from Crisfield, all the way in Madrid, Spain. He's my brother. I have a brother in the UK. Hi, Danny. Hi, Carlos.
There you go. I hope they're listening. Yep.
Oh, they will.
To their brother. Yep. Well, Patrick, as I said, it's been fantastic. Absolutely fantastic to talk to you, sir. I really hope we can do this again, because this has been a blast. Yeah.
And stay in touch.
All right. I certainly will. All right, folks, we're going to play some station IDs, and we'll be right back with you. This is Ultimate Radio Experience.
Goodbye, folks.